subject.
Individual. Fire.
Radio check.
Mike Cooler, 10-4, Bravo 50, copy. Back on service. 909, 10-4, thank you.
Star 20 traffic. Logging off.
Star 20.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna get in early.
I'll be 358 westbound at Agnes. Henry Lincoln Victor 1798. Henry Lincoln Victor 1798.
Henry Lincoln Victor 1798. More than Holly.
Mike 64.
Radio check.
2111.
10-4, 1014 clear.
Yeah, they don't have a sign out. All they have is the address above the door.
10-4. You're coming from Holly. There's
1020.
radio buildings right there in the warehouse buildings or whatever. Go in and see that first and second one. Go to the back and turn it back around and you'll be right there.
18 transit radio test.
You might see some people out there sitting down smoking cigarettes or whatever.
Is it right there in that same shopping center where dispatch for radio? I mean, that restaurant at? Andy's Kitchen?
Logging off.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm signing off. I don't know if you saw right there where that job ended, and then all of a sudden I had another job for the exact same amount or not.
It's not an actual alarm. Radio check. Somebody just burnt some popcorn. 10-4. 4.
Put the amount in manually.
Route 9 to base, if you don't need any assistance, I'm going to take my lunch, 941 to 1041.
1024 radio check.
1 at 11, are those valid? I've got a 10 o'clock at Yale, and then I got an 11 o'clock at Yale. Yeah, I'll take it to the book.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. 2359, repeating 180904 2359.
1024, copy. Have a good day, sir.
Route 2, 10-8.
140.
1022, radio check.
140, go ahead.
Loud and clear.
Yeah, 22, 10-4, thank you.
04345, Victor 2.
Charlie 140, 10-4, 04345, Victor 2.
You copy that number 2?
140, go ahead.
Transit for radio check.
Henry, Zebra Henry, 0641.
This is 914 Illinois radio check.
850477.
850-477, Chipper, out of Illinois. For sure. Thank you, 0 clear, thank you.
6 of 22, address out of Robstown is eligible.
Clear.
4, thank you.
King Lincoln Robert 1830.
I'm 130, I'm 1.
I don't know.
02, 2002.
Personal? Before we go to the next? No, it's the more.
First name is Jerry, H-R-Y, 12201.
10-4.
Be 3 North Tom, 789, 3 North Tom, 789, 3 abreast, 2006 Honda motorcycle. Turn signals are going to have, turn signals on the rear are going to have skulls. Also a sticker with the initials SR in the back of the bike. And a picture of the Reaper on the back. Fort Penny Patrol Port 945.
1021, dispatch radio. Clear.
Another stolen vehicle. License plate King Lincoln Sound 2863. King Lincoln Sound 2863. It's going to be a 2018 Ford F-250 white in color. Stolen from the 7300 block of Bikes 37. Today's date authority on Adam 130, 945.
Clear. Alright, can I have an individual, please?
1013 radio check.
140, I want to be to Airport Morgan.
And can you reset my DRI block paddle 1904?
Star 20, Templar.
Your second subject, can you repeat the last name?
10-4, thank you.
Yeah, do you want to go for?
Check.
Well, can you go to level 4 for Bravo 110?
Airport.
19 for individual.
HMR building over off Brownlee. And she's over here in McCardle and Aspen.
19.
I guess doesn't really know where she's going.
1014 to dispatch. Private line, please.
Out here, but she took a bus.
Dean, go ahead.
29.
a missing juvenile.
Was it Holly on Lincoln Frank George 034410-4?
Is that Janelle?
She ran off
Yes,
before I was able to get over here and start my shift.
Okay, sweetie. What time did you start?
10-4, yeah, she has a bunch of bus tickets here, so she somehow must have got on the bus. She's over here if you guys want to get her.
27 and my manifest.
Here's
187.
3222 Meadow Ridge, 3222 Meadow Ridge.
Case number 0072 to me so I can add something.
Having some numbness. Work on
We do have an individual in the area of 6 points. She's wearing dark green shirt and black pants. This individual has a CTW and is not reported. This is an African American female
915.
wearing dark green shirt and black pants in the area of 6 points.
941198310-4.
10-4. 10-4, we're good from MHMR building.
10-4.
53 Glen Arbor Drive, 5833 Glen Arbor Drive. Cross of Brazewood. It's going to be for a tree rubbing against it. RP can see sparks. Hook on fire dispatch 949.
Sister to break them apart. No, 10-4. A lot of contradicting stories.
This individual line.
Alright, so. 10-4.
Charlie 120. Search for radio check.
Charlie 120, 10-4.
Charlie 130 clear.
Charlie 130, 10-4.
We have someone at the office. It's the signal 25.
310-4.
If there could be a volunteer, we would love it.
I've got my two. He's still working on his. He'll be done shortly. Okay, I'll get started on him. Miss Carter, she's walking away.
Sorry, you back at 2960. She's at Holly and Staples.
Yeah, 10-4.
ALT, this is Reyes, Delta 180. Got an update you want to call?
And could you have that person
Reference my call, it was disturbance with injuries. It's not going to be an assault. She's not even injured.
Oh, okay. Good deal.
Charlie 348. It's going to be at 5413 Bone Street. It's going to be for suspicious vehicle. Highway 368 eastbound Everhart. Highway 368 eastbound Everhart. It's going to be for a minor traffic accident. Contact Sam Monterosa.
Can you please call down? He's waiting on CIT 1 to arrive at his location. Villa Apartments. Been here 3 minutes already and nobody's come out.
148 can be 7038. 18 Charlie 180 7038.
Pick up, drop off at bus stop on Water and Chelsea. I don't know what that
Charlie 160 10-4.
Yeah, I went there too and nobody was there.
She'll be there. If not, wait till 5 and then you can go.
58 at West Point 10-4. And the eastbound or the westbound side?
It's westbound.
This person I'm picking up, she's off, is it a female?
10-4 then.
I believe so.
Dalmalee, Laverne Donovan.
Engine 3 here. It was a guy here, but I think he's a border column or something, but I was wondering.
He only has the
Yes, I think I've been here 5 minutes already. I arrived at 9:13.
I'll get that entered. It'll be my Martinez 14921. I'll put that in the call.
Your times and your mileage.
the block number, just a second.
Then Blanca Rivera, she's at 23 Mary Street, going to 3036 Saratoga, John Paul High School.
Yeah, I'm fixing to lock it up right now. Vehicle hit on your call. It's going to be for King Lincoln Robert 4471.
Okay, supervisor to base?
Yeah, 10-4. I got that. I can see the suspect for it.
Please to base.
10-4. The case number is 180-924-0129. 180-924-0129.
The 945 that you took, David.
I'm not in my car.
I have another 950.
I got people in it. Can you...
I know, I'm sorry guys, I think we're just going to have to run a little bit late. Route 4 is like running late too, and a lot of other ones. If y'all can help, please help. I mean, I'm so sorry.
Let's follow up on that previous year.
That's okay, and then you give me a
3114 Cherry Street, 4114 Street.
Continue picking up.
24th of this month.
10-4, I appreciate y'all's help. I mean, y'all just do your best.
Zero.
We're just going to have to do our best, and I appreciate y'all.
Paul Sam 5901.
Sundays is always a tight schedule.
10901 to bar. 10901
the base, no-show 407, wattage 905, 925, and you're welcome, base.
Looks like you pulled out a strike. Work off of fire dispatch, 959.
Building 5 at the Woodbury Place Apartment. 959. What's it for?
I'm going to continue.
440 on Mirage.
710 to base. Do you know where the office is?
Yeah, it appears that vehicle is now
No,
gone.
I don't know where anything is at this place. I've gotten lost here the whole many times. I just tried to find number 5, but it's not next to number 4.
I'm clear.
Do you know where Whataburger is? Okay, clear. Go behind Whataburger, that first entrance, and stay to your left. You're going to see the office. Keep on going, and then you're going to make a left. 1101 is a good one. Left, and you're going to keep building 5. I have him going to Woodbury Place, picking him up at 10, and then I have him at 11. Here again, going to the dialysis. Yeah, I think that was a mistake for another day. Okay, I think I've got her off. 1101. Alright, hopefully I can just ask him if he comes out, because he doesn't have a good number. And tell him he can call in. 10-4, I'll just worry about 5. Pick up Robinson over here at the Cabana on Everhard. It says pick up by the mailbox off of Middlecross. I don't remember ever picking up. I don't see any, what do you call it? Dumpsters. I just remember us picking up at the dumpster. Is it close to there?
We left a dark gray Honda. The female probably living in the vehicle. License plate Henry Young Henry 3176. It's the next location.
The mailbox on the back by Middlecross. Make a left on the back of the apartment.
20, I just removed the median lane now.
Okay.
138 to 6.
Okay. I'm going to take it out. Thank you.
440.
Just contact us.
10-4.
Yeah, I'll be out at 5701 Agnes.
I need a private
follow up on that previous year.
What was wrong with that one?
D701 Agnes.
The display screen on the Gen Fair, you could get it to lighten up.
Did you want me to mark it as a no-show or a cancel or what?
Zero transit.
Either one. Just put your times and mileage on there, and then we'll cancel at the door or no-show. It's the same thing.
Yes, sir.
Or 1017 or what?
Yes, sir. 1017. Maintenance code on. They didn't have it on the list.
10 August Court to Bar.
920 radio check.
1306 clear.
Clear?
1306 to Bar.
10-4, thank you.
Calls been pending over 2 hours.
I wait for anyone on Townhouse Lane. I wait on the street, correct? Ricardo, I mean?
Yeah, Roger.
To Brian? Somebody on the corner.
With you real quick, I got a task for you. Simple name it.
I'm pretty sure I was told to
358
Brian.
approaching Agnes right now,
At the
so...
end
I don't know if you heard that, so we kept getting a call between those two, but one of your guys issued a CTW for them this morning, so I guess she's planning on doing it before.
039. Repeating Charles 180 7039.
address.
Mike 21, Ops 20.
98 Townhouse Lane. Walmart?
Follow 140.
That's right, John David 185 to 4.
David 185.
7 David 185.
Okay, I have 2150 en route. Do you need
This is by Ennis Jocelyn. It's where all the free houses are. Oh, Carriage Park?
He's going to be going to the Arizona Crime Scene
In there.
for the vehicle.
I don't even...
Okay, well, I need somebody to make contact with the RT. Okay, so far. Redirect me and try to work with you.
Dangerous to go in there.
Where's the RT? She's going to be at 7352 Woodridge, 7352 Woodridge at the Woodridge Place Nursing Center. She's going to be Melissa Reyes.
To Brian, my times are 9:51 to 9:56.
Can you get a mobile phone partner?
Yes, you want. Transporting one adult female to MHMR.
He said, but no contact.
At 1009. Saturday day, please.
Well aware of that man, but they said they called for her from one hotel to the other to get picked up. I just hung over to her, you'd be there in 1 minute.
Alarm 110414. 110414.
Manuel de Leon.
It's going to be a 10-minute activation. Look off fire dispatch 1010.
9, copy.
Medic 3, Medic 9, what's your location?
Oh, okay, because I saw another bus
we're on
leave right now from where I'm gonna pick them up. That's why I was wondering.
Medic 3, 5 dispatch, we'll take that call for Medic 9.
Alright, so Medic 9, I'll show you where 1.
Medic 9, copy. Thank you, Medic 3. Medic 9 dispatch, go ahead and show us in service in
24 to 5, 10-8.
Medic 9, cover.
The other that brings them down to West.
Forward to base.
Yeah, I called them also. Okay, good deal. I'm actually headed over there. I'm just a little ways off. Alright.
Okay, we're probably going to leave here, I guess, and go back to the vehicle.
Manuel de Leon never came out. It's already been 6 minutes.
Oh. And where is that? Where am I headed then?
Till...
Go to the Quincy Street. We'll meet you over there. We're down the street.
Okay, let's trip and go.
We'll head back over there.
I didn't understand you. What street?
What do you want?
Got pretty strong rain heading in from the south.
Yeah, 10-4. You want the vehicle located there, or where the officers are out at?
013.
The officers are headed back to the I'm assuming where the Volvo is. So that's where I need to go.
You want to perform Sandra Hager?
Actually, at
I perform her instead of Blanca.
17 Clancy, 7217 Clancy. Basically, if you come down Rockfield, turn left on Waldridge. First street over is supposed to be Neville Drive to Kitchener.
Okay, so he's on Rockfield and my building, but south on Below,
but everything else is...
Yeah, 10-4. South on Rockfield and eastbound Waldridge, and the first street's going to be Bevo. Go southbound. It's going to turn into Kitchener.
Alright, thank you.
Yeah, 10-4. Once you get to that Kitchener, it's going to be the first street on the right. Just follow it down, it'll turn into Clancy.
Oh, here's Port Flower Bluff, and Corpus, the highway is flooding.
10-4.
The Longhorn.
10-4.
Captain.
Zeke Luna.
4.
10-4. Round 4. 10-4.
Right.
John Sarton, S-A-R-T-A-I-N. Erica Coronado,
courtyard, and there
1331.
was nobody there, so I'm going down to Motel 6, and I should be there within less than 10 minutes.
We're at the courtyard.
Well, I went inside, I didn't see him.
On the base. Alright, well, I'm gonna drop Miss Espinosa first, back over there for the get something else, and then I'll go to the lunch and go get her.
Back on that UAB.
Good, so he's headed back over there. Alright.
So you get from the previous UAB from Moderation to
good hit on my drive.
Alright.
4.
We'll be escorting him to the office.
Info Diana Bell,
The
1306.
second party involved in that fight called murder of the same round trip. A 2015 Toyota Corolla. Taken from 6672 SPID at the Auto Nation Toyota.
Cancel all day for
Last time of the event could
Gregory
be
Salinas,
84671,
12 o'clock,
84671. Authority Bravo 110 at 1016.
The window for my 10:30 pickup because I'm barely not even on my way for my 10 o'clock.
Go down.
Transfer that to 5.
Any wave or splash in the water? 10-4. 10-4, sir.
16 fall.
Attention all units. Be advised, we have heavy rain in the area causing standing water. Please be advised to slow your speed, increase your following distance. Remember, safety first, schedule second.
460's got a fall. Breathe, he's unconscious.
Acknowledge.
10-24, 10-4.
909, 10-4.
920, 10-4, 10-7. Tell me the courtyard is
10-21, 10-5.
is on
Negative 17.
is on 1.1.
911, 10-4.
Affirmative.
Is where you're supposed to be at, yeah.
Your manifest number
Sorry about all the
is start.
10-4.
315.
Tactical Fleet Motel, 5837 Bufford. It given an incomplete 911, advising that it was down from 102, but he doesn't know the guy has been sick, so he's needed medics.
pick up at
All Route 32 drivers acknowledged.
Yeah, that was my phone. I see it here, but I didn't put it who it was connected with. Okay, thank you. I'll show you, sir.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Can you repeat that? You're coming in static.
Going to fire track.
Where is the plate? 55 Charles X-ray Boy 9.
55 Charles X-ray Boy 9, 10-4.
10-4, 130 in our to admin.
Cancel him.
One individual, keep on approaching 286.
You can't, I don't understand what you're saying.
On approaching 286, 10-4.
I'm making my way that direction.
10-4. Delta
Oh,
120 copy.
yeah, I did that. Double. 10-4. Route 7.
Yeah, I contacted the driver, Melissa over here, the driver.
Would you be able to give
no one has a
Nadia a
description
car
on the
call?
vehicle. Evidently the windows were roll tinted.
And nobody's talking on the phone.
Ready until around 12:30.
Go ahead and if you need no-show times, then tell her she has to call in when she's ready.
Basically what happened, I got three
She
guys
said that
off
she's
here
been trying
cheating
to
on
call,
each
but
other.
they
We
keep
can get
telling her, I
confirmation
guess
via
it's
person on camera that
where is she
one
calling
was the driver, Ringo 12.
She can't get a hold of anyone.
Okay. Let me go
Nobody
inside
came
and
in
see
till,
cameras.
11.
What kind of camera footage they have.
No, they're going to answer. Or,
Okay,
you know, at least two.
maybe somebody inside and put that call, one pull in.
Alright, thank you.
Yeah, well, they were parked in the front, so
doing
maybe
no-show?
whoever's in that vehicle,
Yes, I was
maybe
trying to
may have went
explain to her
inside to
what
visit somebody, I don't know. But they were parked in front of this
170
nursing home,
on
in a
the
handicap spot.
Okay, so far, yeah, maybe somebody's catching a side call.
May I have a private, please?
If I have a record driver, he needs to wear gloves. Over there. Keys, where's the traffic?
10-4, Charlie, be very copy, I'll show you clear. Can you over to the accident?
Where do they need me? Bravo 120.
Requesting 2 units to block off the strip. Pep boys, there is 460. Charlie 460.
No, 939.
Your time?
Start by check on 5809.
No, not yet.
5809.
1024, sir. He's at Route 20 coming inbound to Staple Street Station. His gym fare is $60, sir.
From Jennifer, address of 4114 Harry, 4114 Harry. Jennifer's requesting a call back. Has questions about programs that you had talked to her about. I have the phone number whenever you're ready.
I mean, transfer.
361-904-5896.
Madison to Route 10.
For the first
Oh, okay, fine, thanks.
Hey, 527, I'm on the phone.
146.
7.
Okay, we have the second half of the parties involved from this morning.
Taken 3 times. It's going directly to voicemail.
She's just on the platform. They're having disturbance with each other. They all know each other. And when I'm breathing at this time, there's a red flag shirt with camo pants. You and 3 and 4 can make your way over there.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay, 10-4, have a nice
Need an
day.
extra.
Sunday, Sunday, relax.
Step back to Emmanuel De La Cruz. He works with ABM Navigation. His expiration is 11/17. His badge.
10-4, thank you.
You're welcome.
100, 800, 350 eastbound. I copied Lincoln Henry Young 3826.
Translate 76.
Hey, do you have a number for
76.
Jose Juarez?
76. Can I get you to go out Route 65? 361. After the crash, got a information that it's a flooded area out there.
And they're having
Go
another
out
mess
there and
already.
check it
I
out.
don't see him out
If
here.
you cannot make it through, do not take that if you want to then.
Okay,
We didn't get an answer.
This is all the commission for them. Look at you going to check out 65.
Male wearing a red shirt and brown pants. Male with a black shirt and camo pants. Didn't say what number platform they were on, but it got off of bus 27.
Yeah, I got the bike guys here.
No, that's right. Got it now.
10-4, Delta 130 is around over there as well.
23. Please call the
130,
office.
10-4.
Have
right at the bottom, close down. Gotta back up now, thanks. Alright.
Muddy Road to Jose.
5393.
27. Disregard him. Disregard that call. Just put me no job.
919 of 90.
Why am I not surprised?
BRGGS.
Yeah, I'm not getting surprised either.
Now in the base, Abilene, Florida. Still alarm out here.
Another call right now. Still pending. Send
Expired at 96 of 18. Address of 11934 Hearn Road. This city is eligible. Still showing to be negative 29.
Unit 1016, 10-4.
Johnny 19 radio check, please.
Complaint was heading into 10.
Those are seem to come out. Complaint called back, requested to cancel, saying the subject's not there. And the complaint was also leaving. Give me an individual. Somebody just go ahead and cancel it out.
Yes, sir, just cancel.
Give me just a second.
You open the gate, please. 2424.
Cab 19. Pick up that call. Cab 19, Thomas. Roger.
Got it. 4605 need references.
Sorry, do what?
We're gonna want to start follow-up.
Pending drug possession, 3900 Surfside, North Beach. Called in by Parks and Rec worker. Can be contacted if needed.
Mr. Base, can I get my address to 2002?
I don't know if Fruit's down there. There's one at Morgan and Brownlee.
Henry, King Charles, 1916.
There is one on Ayers.
1024 radio check,
Get
please.
to McCardle.
Either Manshine or Sunny Brook on the corner.
Oh yeah, that one. You're about 16.
21, go ahead. Contact 9359.
Okay, they didn't have you listed as on.
935938 Frank 24.
46 to change the locations of the accident right in front of KIII TV on the access road westbound.
Location 118 Naples.
KIII TV 10-4 on the office road.
Go for 10.
Can you remember what you out? I'm not able to log you into a new unit.
190 Temple.
29 vehicle,
Alrighty, thank you.
I need the motor vehicle registration and the year model of the car. Once I'm minding you travel, turn off. I don't want to get into this car.
71 expires January 2019. Comes out to a black 2005 Volvo XC9. The VIN is going to be Young Victor 1 Charles Zebra 8 Quebec 1208
His gem fare is not issuing transfer.
I got it all. Is your manifest 15, ironically?
610 Crestbrook, 3610 Crestbrook, Unit 2.
830
manifest number 2-year-old female who is being arrested in hospital. Fusing advice. We're not supposed to start dispatching 43.
I'm sorry. You were, it's a no-show?
53 for your customer support. You're at 5333 already.
1235.
Before, unless you need help with the quick run.
Fine. It's just that it's raining over here, so a driver just wanted to ride. Oh, okay. It's 10-4. Yeah, no, I'm not in the yard.
Well, what place did you, Carol?
712 I checked with the owners of the vehicle. Apparently they lost keys last night. They're taking care of that today. 1047 right there. Service right now.
Thank you for your time.
Young boy 2554 tip bar.
Yeah. Alright. So, Sam.
Yes, sir. Can you call Mike and Bill on the cell phone we get transfer?
Ida, David, Tom, first name James. Gonna be a white male, JV 12.
You're riding to point.
661.
We'll drop off on Park Street. Then I'll go make the rest of the pickup. I'm a little early. Can you move that one up?
So this morning at the County Jail, and so
I'm on the phone, just 1 second.
Hey, he smelled like alcohol when we rolled it over, so I'm gonna follow the medics to Bay, okay?
140 in line.
I'm headed to Alameda and Dadris to meet up with my grandson.
132 to 131.
Go ahead, base.
All the way around with no 27 return. Flooding conditions on the island or border landed.
Looking for us going into the office. We're still looking for
Negative, Jackson. Okay, thank you.
Okay, 10-4. At 10-4, do you get out to the call on your screen?
Traffic.
Okay, 10-4.
This is about 350 westbound at Bear. 07107 King 4. 07107 King 4 by side. A gray Mustang GT.
Yes, sir. We're going to report to Caledonia Carter, sir, at 17th and Ayers for the Route 19. Trying to make the announcement.
When are you riding, 10-4?
Yeah, any location that's here and ask them not to board it.
2012.
Oh, okay. Go and send for confirmation.
Transformer.
Yeah, what over there?
160 Temple.
Native base.
Get everything clear traffic.
Maintain manual login.
50 clear.
Let me have them do it now. Just stay. Don't do nothing else. 10-4.
Fall. Interested over.
We do have an individual female in the area of 17th and Ayers at the Route 19. This individual is wearing a dark green shirt and black pants. This individual is not going to take that.
My memory on
Again, this is a female.
African American on what street? 1023 Dalewood.
Off of Everhard Pass. You got a pass here? It's going to be on your left.
19-10-4.
Oh, okay, 10-4. 10-4. Those apartment houses, whatever they are.
19-10-4.
Alright, 10-4. Thank you.
1014, 10-4.
21, I'll be clear my port.
10-4.
21 clear.
912, 10-4.
Marshall 2 is going to be a disturbance in progress. 3706 Grassmere Drive, 3706 Grassmere Drive. Contact Natasha Stein.
17th and Ayers.
1800.
She is not to be picked up. She is wearing a dark
At
green shirt.
1070 County Road 55. 1070 County Road 55. Point of alarm is going to be zone 8, 7, and 12 for general fire alarm. Look out for fire dispatch, 1054.
Go ahead and then in your next stop, or you can right now, switch it off.
At this area.
Make sure you're doing it from the main switch on the side of the sheriff.
where he went out on them.
Yes, ma'am.
Try one more time to do that.
Second base.
Okay, 10-4.
Go ahead.
To shoot from 4, Charlie 120 is en route. I'll be with you to the disturbance, 3706 Grassmere.
Your time, we're trying to be safely.
Support myself and Marshall 4.
Take this unit to the shop that has like 3 or 4 things wrong with it.
Can you work off of EMS 1?
Let me know if you make contact with the
office area and have a license plate King X-ray 09703.
Just head quick, 7.
Does it say where he saw them?
I'm standing by it,
Can you
Carol.
work off of EMS Christian fire dispatch 1057?
Did you try that 537-29112?
I'm gonna give it a little bit.
537-29112. It's for Arena Morton. This is Grandma. Right on the
I can't see on my screen, but it just has Mr.
29
Hyde
last name
today.
Cardona, first name Erica with a C. 1211 of 90, Hispanic team.
What number was that?
10-4. Flag down right between the Memon and Shoe.
Okay, roger
In
that.
the shopping center.
Help us out with that major.
Trip number 1270037. All I have is a street. I don't have any numbers for this street. Can you double check the address for me, please?
I'm at 358 and Greenwood. I'll try to get that way. Check it out.
Tab 9, she just canceled.
10-4.
We had another ride.
Any unit that can clear the backup Charlie 1 for the major. Weber and Holly.
Okay, well, I'm just going to try to see if we can see what kind of injury I got.
650. We just got a hit confirmation back from Colorado. They're stating that the hit is not confirmed.
Oh, okay.
1022.
Oh, ma'am. Request.
10-4.
service. We'll go and take that call for Medic 14 on Weber and Holly.
Medic 610-4, Medic 14, copy.
For radio check.
Clear?
Can you run a push 909 clear? Thank you.
Please. John, Nora, Paul, 5849.
Go ahead.
John Nora Paul, 5849. Are you out on the call?
Show me signal 4 here, support up.
10-4.
Clear, have a good
Copy,
day.
Texas. ID 40014 718. 40014 718.
10-4, copy.
Charlie 160. I mean, one rotation, please.
16 hour Beacon Anthony Yard. Jacqueline Lemon, L-E-M-M-O-N-S. Fill in an ID card. Supervisor 256, can I get a private on 95? Copied 1 King Boy, Robert King. What's the rest? What name's an individual?
The handicap plate, 1013.
That I just put on your screen, they are going to work. It's great sale.
140?
Arriving to action.
140, 10-4, and Charlie 120 on 10-4.
We're 2 in custody and transport.
921-23.
We need at least one, well, we're gonna need 2 case numbers, it's fine. I can recall it.
ID 6429.
Hey, I just didn't see
Okay,
that you were
10-4, copy.
available over there. So
4 occupants.
the computer system pulled you, then
King Victor Tom 47034, occupants 10-4.
take it.
I need to walk over to unit number 2. I'll give you that minute.
10-4.
Charlie 1, cancel traffic. I'll do the traffic. Let me check into that too.
Charlie
1013.
174.
Thank you.
900, copy.
That's a 10-4. Thank you, sir. Do what? Traffic, whoever was coming from the north side.
10-4, it's just going to be Charlie, yourself, Charlie 140 and 900 on the call.
Hello. Yeah, my traffic I think was going to head this way. I had contact 4901 and patrol 2. 900, we're in the intersection. Right now.
Charlie 110-4, I will get hold of 2901.
King, 2 occupants.
418 to base.
I'm not sure the 27 return.
401B coming.
They should be on their way.
Right there on the corner.
Okay, 10-4.
Be doing an alarm test at 5825 SCID, the Red Lobster. Can you please let me know when that comes in?
10-4.
My packet bus went out. Can you get it reset, please?
4.
Thank you.
Standby.
Tab 21.
15 minutes. He's in jeans and a neon shirt. He's moving around, but he's on the ground.
Dispatch,
Tab
1108.
21.
Annabelle copy, brush 71 responding. 21, go ahead.
4, let me get that for you.
Tab 21, we have a van request. I'm going to sign a
Alright,
call
12, 10-4.
to you. And it's a little
4
bit
radio
late
secure.
where you are, and I'm sorry.
For Daniel Munguia, trying to be at a 29 all the way around. Not getting a 27 return. For Henry, here showing to be 29 out of New Oasis for burglary and showing 1 FC warrant. 4.
Team, do not accept that call. That is a van request. I'm trying to get that request in.
10-4, no 27
Get
return.
off the phone so I can get this done.
Can we check Kylie? See if he's got history?
It is not coming off my screen.
Clear it for a penny. I did everything I could.
Showing
Tab
his service now.
18.
Thank you.
Tab 18. Do not accept that call or recall it right now. I'm trying to fix it.
Base.
The van request.
570057.
Please accept it.
1043 for man down. 71, work off EMS 1.
Steam Transit, 10-7. 10-4.
140, disregard on that citation. Charlie 1 had one for me.
Charlie 140, 10-4, disregard. Engine 14, medic 14, engine 14, medic 14 for difficulty breathing at 6809 overhead. 6809 overhead. For a 57-year-old male. Going to be in the back office. Blood pressure 70 over 40. This is for Medical Associates. Work off at EMS 1, 1112.
What time will you be around
Cable station?
The other service is 1601.
You're following right now to go toward Delmar?
1601 Agnes.
You get a unit clear. Can you send it my way? They can park at the AQB parking lot by the gas pump. Probably gonna need a ride for the elderly couple.
Charlie 110. Okay, can you get the gate, please?
Charlie 160, I'm almost not here, I head that way.
Charlie 160, 10-4.
It's gonna be full. The keys, we got them on camera.
You have a passenger trying to get on your bus.
Mike, do me a favor, go ahead and grab him. Can you head towards the Bay Area? We need to get a medical clear and I'll meet you there when I get
airport and Villa.
No, she does not need the cab. No, I know job to job.
No, Morgan and Baldwin.
Can you take it off my screen, please?
Give me an idea where to meet you.
Route 28.
Yeah, I got unit 1013, Fairbox working again, from Staples Station. Yes.
By those in Lester area?
10-4.
Okay. I'll head that way. When you get cleared, I'll be there. No big deal. I just wanted to show you a letter that I sent.
This is 7-1. Go ahead, sir.
I got a response to it already. I referenced the subject we were talking about.
Copy that.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. Colin, can you build me another mental health call at 3401 South Alameda, number 806? 201 South Alameda, number 806.
Go ahead.
Hold up then.
10-4.
You come to reception. She thinks she left her cell phone in the back of it. Have you checked it today for anything? Yes, and there's nothing in here.
Go to 7. For private.
Driver number 1 custody at 1117.
Different individual.
900, I requested 2 records. I'll be there at 258. 10-4.
100, yeah, total of 2 wreckers out here. First wrecker has arrived.
Birds are in the call. We ain't got nobody to send.
7-1, go ahead.
Number 1, you're in line. I got you. About 30 seconds.
3, sir.
About 2 later.
Jennifer is not taking dollar bills. It's the route 23, sir.
Check open lever.
This is 1023, go ahead.
Okay, 10-4, thank you.
Can you open the gate, please?
On one of them, they advised they're going to release the subject. I was getting with the call taker on that.
Okay, 10-4. Do you need me? I need one of those.
Out of Tennessee. Open the gate, please. So it's going to be with limited extradition of 100 miles within Waverly, Tennessee. 10-4.
Can I get lieutenant first? Not up there past me. Can I get his extension? The complete phone number to his office and his email should be colbyb@cctexas.com, correct?
6.
1023. We're good to go on unit 1023.
At the HB on Weber and Holly. It was the employee calling it in. The female victim, she took off.
Two on 1023, Route 23.
TV was on the mail. They ran the subject, negative 29, and they released the subject. Did you want me to go ahead and just close that call?
Transit 924, radio check.
Manchi, 1506 Manchi, on field of plane contact. Advising there's a car in the alleyway between Comanche and La Pond. Unknown if somebody's inside, has tinted windows. No description of the vehicle. Team Delta.
1020, radio check. Be backing up.
Vehicle to Bayview, check for it.
130.
395 adult male en route to CDC.
10-4.
I'm 130, Adam 1. Charlie 160.
Will you call MHA 9 County Road 44?
1306, clear.
Unit 6. Unit 6, 10-4, clear.
Being called to room 105.
10-4, retro room 105.
830, is 173 in the area?
Well, he was at Weber and Holly, but he's probably already on this side. To Cunningham, please.
Yeah, 10-4. I'm in route.
No, Staples, I'm in route. Got a disturbance. What a guy.
Did you want me to clear from the major?
Copy, headed that way. Castores and Galahar.
Go ahead.
2309 Mercury. It's going to be a female inside the yard. She's lying down.
Okay, 837's in the parking lot of the Stripes.
She's en route to the location.
Staples and Leopard.
Alright, dispatch 725.
53.
Okay, so who's
Yeah, it's just that for there's 3 units there from BD.
Whoever you think is more, was the aggressor, whoever started.
You guys got a CCW window issue.
the time period?
What's his name?
Thank you, ma'am. Likewise.
I'm sorry.
What's the name?
I think you just faxed.
At Cab A, I can't seem to find this person on Brandywine Court.
The weapon being a cane.
Just a 711 25th Street. This city is eligible.
Okay, please.
Support, thank you.
Somebody else's phone.
Person there to sign off on it, or they can talk to them on the phone, or what?
If she shows up, maybe I'll
believe that
couple
they
times.
personally have to be here, so. Yeah, he's been taking Great. Alright, thank you.
Fax one. You weren't there yet?
Negative.
130, 10-4.
180 in the area.
180, 10-4. Morgan, 1303, First Street. Contact Kathy, the assistant manager. Delta 120, Delta 130 is 3 males outside. Panhandling, one in a blue hoodie, one in blue hospital scrubs, one in shirt and blue jeans. Currently by the ice cooler in red box. Been asked to leave.
120 till 4. Okay, till 4. I'm clear.
Bravo 1 clear. Bravo 1 10-4.
Can you fax that over to City Jail, just in case the other one got lost?
Charlie 130. 10-9, sir. Somebody else was talking.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you go ahead and fax that drone trespass over to CDC one more time, please?
409, Paul, you're not coming through clearly.
Thank you.
Cab A.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a closer I talked to the resident at 3770 Brandywine, and she said she didn't call a cab.
Let's get the copy.
Engine 3. We'll take that one. The next one. No job. Go on to the next one.
10-4. Rescue 037. 5.
Can you meet up with 1020 before you head in, Unit 1020? They have a problem with the bill feed. And also, did you copy that traffic that I contacted 37 reference those 2 individuals, Wendy Stop Airs? Yeah, they were harassing passengers for money. Volunteer unit.
110, 10-4.
Star 1 good?
Under dispatch, could you give me an individual line, please? 5780.
1058. 1058. Okay, Steve.
Code 1, shoreline, starting mileage 0.1. 71 to dispatch. I believe he went down to the jail. Can I help you?
29, Santa Fe.
Sir, I don't think this
Man, 60 Santa Fe, 10-4. I recall about a week ago, we tried to fax over there, and it seemed like it wasn't working either. 512, 10-4.
Hey, Nana, be at City Hall for a minute. Get email, but I don't think this fax is working.
Yeah, like I said, I think that happened before, and a couple of tries later it must have went through. Or you can call down and ask them for the number.
Okay, who are y'all using right now? Do we have Delta 2's not on yet, right?
Adam 1. 7-1.
Okay, thank you.
7-1, go ahead, sir. 9.
Charles, what's your last name?
4521 Hubert.
Rogers, R-O-G-E-R-S.
4521 Hebert, 10-4.
3.
1013. Go ahead, 5-3.
You keyed up, did you have traffic?
I got in touch with him. I thought it came through. I'm good, thank you.
10-4.
3-4. 1206.
Can you show me how I step in at my residence?
1206, 10-4.
I'm at a no-show unit, ma'am. I've been here since 16, 19, it's 25 of...
New Station 3 then.
Yeah, it came out.
That used to be on Staples. Staples and Agnes is around that area.
Ford, you gotta wait till 1629.
10-4.
Oh, control base.
Medic 11, we're en route to your facility, code 1 with a 93-year-old male patient, ANO times 4. Male was complaining of left-sided numbness in his arm, stating that pain about 5 minutes prior to EMS arrival. Initial vitals on scene, BP 104 on 64. Got a heart rate of 68.
Need a 1043.
Standing at 96% on room air. Got a glucose of 121. Respiration's about 18. Patient stated numbness in his arm has subsided. He does have positive and equal grip strength. He doesn't have any facial droop or pronate address.
Irma Nelson is ready
IV
right now.
established. Got him on nasal channel right now. You see about 2 minutes.
Will be 3 minutes now.
What was the last time normal? Personal. What's the color for the week?
We didn't need a case number. Can you cancel that?
It's been canceled. EP transit, 10-7.
4, thank you.
No, you kill it.
Alright. Hold on, 1 second.
Maybe I got confused and went to the other accident. Can you start a record to repair Toga and Weber in the Bolero gas station for 1 rotation, please?
10-4.
Houston 1 on board.
They actually made contact with my opinion, got the plate, the guy and everything.
10-4.
Boy.
Yes, job number 1270646.
Boy, Adam 42307 10-4.
He's at Fernand's.
Lincoln Street, some pending for 39 minutes. Contact Amy support. A beret and glasses in a Ford station wagon.
Alright, just one more.
And we got another call from an RTA advising a female at the location was blocking a man, wouldn't allow him to leave.
4934 traffic.
16 traffic.
4934. Location?
It's going to be SPID westbound at Stores. John Henry William, 9779.
Give us on the Pilar.
SPID westbound.
Just to let her know that I'm standing by.
Sure, it's 20 right.
I'll call her again. I called for the Wednesday. Take a little 10-7 and come in. I need to give you something that operations manager wanted me to give y'all for the 16th.
Number 16.
10-4 base, thank you.
110.
So is the female subject the child supposed to be in school or is she supposed to be at this location?
Here wanted to give her a ride home. 10-4, show me where the female students here in the cafeteria. How many
Get the little girl's room, okay?
10-4, cafeteria. 542.
915.
Transit individual, please.
For a patient who's on oxygen, passed out in the bathroom. We're copy EMS 1, 1145.
Medic scan cut from quarters.
Engine 3, okay?
Second her. Oh.
915. Do we know the route location or no?
She's headed to Port Air. He is 37.
Okay, Jeff, we're headed down. Marroquin, Mary, Adam, Robert, Ocean, Queen, Union, Ida, Nora.
They say you picked up the full one.
2 R's, M-A-R-R. U-I-N.
915 dispatch individual.
Passed out in the bathroom. Not sure what happened. Do you want to send units out or can we have medics advice?
Southbound station from Port Air down Ramsey, Norton, Storage, and on down Staples.
140, 10-4. 50, 10-4.
7-1, she's headed to Southside.
That's 140. I'm alright. Yeah, 10-4, I copy that. I'm headed her away. I'm trying to catch her on Castores. 10-4. 7-2-2-1-2-3.
10-4, Travis.
10-4, thank you, ma'am.
Bravo 150 now.
There's going to be a caution at the address for the Santa Maria. It's aggressive and confrontational with responders.
Cab 16.
You almost
Consider the pending suspicious person, a shoplifter, and assist with property that just came in.
Go ahead.
We have a backup for EMS at 610 Robert. There's a caution on the address.
Leaving
Bravo
Southside
50
Station.
Charlie 210 or enough.
Payment is down.
Yeah, that guy's a pain. Alright, thanks.
Alright, let me see.
130, 10 for all, confirm if
It's gonna be under 25's number.
Go ahead.
Let me tell him.
Bravo 110, we're getting an update on your call, advising that the grandmother's on her way to pick up her grandson, Herbert, at the nursing
Did I
home.
tell you that I took care of 915? You can let her know that he's in custody.
Bravo 150.
I've been while I'm on it to the radio.
Important adult male in my unit 2, baby.
1014 to transit. Can you reset my DRI block?
We're on King Station on Robertson, Avalon.
4 miles. 10-8. 4. Number 9, please.
Ready?
Paramedic to my
Transition 7.
Ida Sam Mary, Adam Edward Lincoln, Menor en Vallejo. It's a white male.
92 transit, 1043 individual, please.
10-4.
10-4, case number is 1089. 1089.
Open a gate, please. The shop over, AC, work off and on.
10-4, case number is going to be 610061, Delta 2.
I got
7-1 to transit. I'm 10-8.
4 out to Saratoga and
I'm direct.
1015, 10-8.
Yeah, LPD.
Excuse me, 915 transit, 10-8.
2.
5.2. CIT 1 off patrol 4. Check with the other channels, Bravo 150.
Super, thank you.
For information.
Cab 12.
29, TCIC, NCIC.
Manifest number 138. Start time 6:35 p.m.
Class C, expires 1/16 of 19. Address out of Mathis is eligible.
925 transit 1044. Can you give me the return on that?
09, please. 10-4.
Outbound at Staple Station, 27 outbound, Staple Station. Please hold for the Route 29. They have passengers for the Route 27 outbound, decom.
Does show to expire April of 2018 to a 10/2014 Chevy 4-door. Last 4 of the VIN are 4863. Address out of Mathis.
Staple Station, inbound 23.
Mission by the crisis worker.
Inbound 23, 23.
King Charles Victor 1386.
Charles Victor 1386.
Rocket bus reset. My bus turned off again.
29, they have passengers for you.
I'll be working off duty at the Staple Street Station until 8 p.m.
Individual.
I'm trying to log in to the storefront, and it won't even bring me to the login screen. It just keeps spinning.
What unit are you on?
7116.
Stand by.
It was up earlier and working fine, but I went into maintenance. And then when I tried to log back in, it just keeps spinning. I can't even find it.
My bus picking up the Delmar people just like a shuttle.
In the transit, individual.
For lunch between 10:55 and 11:55.
1023, 1044.
They're okay. I gotta clear up. I gotta go to main. Is Charlie 110 closed or no?
4. Paramedics are advising that PD can cancel.
Okay, so we're all clear. Yeah, they're all fine. Thank you.
There's one, Bravo 1, Bravo 50 clear. Charlie, you can still need me on 4.
18, I want to be
Negative, I'll show you clear and back on 3.
Hold down.
Cool.
1044.
I'll call you back.
15.
Woman from earlier from out here somewhere. Let me call her. I have her phone number. And what do you need? I have a person that's called in, not feeling stressed out and talking suicidal thoughts. He's not wanting to do anything right now. He has thoughts of it. Yeah, you got someone coming to strength on to go for a call? To get to those gentlemen.
Roger, we do.
Let me call her. I'll have her hopefully come up on the radio. All right.
Be there. Less than 5.
Right now I'm on Alameda.
5, how long till you get here? I'm gonna have to baby you with a gentleman. I didn't know if you wanted a big guy in a black t-shirt. You can don't even mind my bluff here.
This isn't her, Tom. I was just letting you know.
Roger that. Does she have the money?
And advising she could hear a female through the phone and thinks the female could possibly be held against her will.
$6.
He's walking, he's moving around. You can slow down the other unit.
Because $6 ain't gonna get him that far.
Adam 160 copy. Who reduced your code? Adam 1.
Well, I've already left. They got me on another one.
4105 Airs. Vanessa can be contacted if it's necessary.
Roger that.
Reference a panhandler at the bus stop. 7210. Could be a female with blonde hair, red shirt and blue jeans. So with a male with no description.
18 transit. 1044.
Alameda.
Right now, Alameda, 10-4.
Yeah, just let your customer know when the meter hits 6. That's the end of the ride there.
Thinking about it, so I'm giving him a ride to bathe you.
Roger
I
that.
don't know if you wanted to show him or not.
So that they know that he's en route.
Is there some program you had, or if I'm doing the right thing? I'm just following what we've always done in the past.
76. Yes, sir. Can I make contact with unit 1001, sir? Or unit is 1024.
I know the customer there and
heading outbound.
got up out of my car.
19. I do have maintenance in Roger.
Well, that was 1002.
Hold on there.
1001.
10-4.
Hey, a little run ain't gonna hurt me much, but
And he's outside by the stairs.
he's going all the way up towards
Christopher is a Hispanic male wearing a gray muscle shirt and red shorts.
Staples. And it's like, that ain't gonna get me far.
You look at a rope with it.
There's 4 priority 2s, 1 priority 3, and 1 priority 4 pending.
Okay.
5. Is he taking, is the $50 the one that Elizabeth and Staples?
System.
Did you go to the internet or anywhere else on your computer?
It's up there by the
It's still got the spinning wheel of death trying to log into Citrix.
Unit are you in?
7100.
915, 1044.
Hey, right, this is taking my
44.
Mine is just my idly.
300.
1024, 1044.
5707 10-4.
100 with tinted windows, license plate John Sim Henry 5016, John Sim Henry 5016, Hispanic female driver, child not in car seat, control 2 at 1209.
18. Ben.
Probably 1610. Yeah, 2 at Emma.
Yeah, if you're having problems, we're probably going to have to physically look at your computer.
120.
Yeah, I'll still be on my call, but I'm going to have to go to building 5.
Yeah, you can call the office when you get a chance there.
To the station. 10-4. 220, 10-4. To a white 1997 Ford pickup. Last 4 of the VIN are 4713.
144 to report the pickup.
Address at a
Can you
portable
text
box.
to the DA's office?
We have somebody in a cab here at the cab stand. Paying customer. Cab stand.
43 Frank.
Well, did you put it in a mid?
3 fleet. A black 2007
that goes to,
Honda motorcycle.
that would go to, headquarters.
Have clear skulls on the sticker that says SR on the back of the bike. Try to read on the back.
Yeah, I already reviewed it. It goes to headquarters.
Full ridge.
44, I put it in that envelope so it wouldn't get lost and just put Sergeant James on top so he can review it, but day shift has to pick it up and take it to the court. Morgan and Brownlee.
Truck, can you do that?
180, no, I did. Yeah, 10-4, tight. Just drunk, and the parents are trying to get him to get some alcohol help, or because he's an alcoholic. 10-4.
Yeah, I'm 10-4.
Like I said earlier, he's same situation. He's up, he's talking, he's quiet, he's answering our questions. So there's not much we can do.
Who's calling it in? The parent?
Yeah, the parent. They showed up here. The first time she just called it in. This time they showed up. They really want to take him to the hospital, but unless she's an adult, she doesn't want to go.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yes, sir.
Just advise him to go talk to a Jason.
Captain number 12 is out there looking for you right now, so he should be there. Give her about a minute. We'll do that. That's a good idea.
Okay, not a problem. 600-875-614.
Way we can get him, and they might even be able to get him in over there at that one, what's it called over there, off of Rocky.
There is no 4754 Everhart.
Is it behavior?
It goes almost to 4750s, but there is no 4750. It's to 4800.
Yeah, and do you happen to recall did you get a case number for that impound, or was it just an impound number?
Is this one of those inventory numbers? I forget. I can look it up and I'll send it to you.
Where?
What's for the
What's the name of the
insurance?
Nah, don't worry about it.
Stripe.
I got your impound. It's okay.
Stripe.
I got your
Everhart and SPID. Stripes, Everhart and SPID.
You may have to go,
Roger.
Thank you.
To your release. I got no one south.
The Stripes and Everhart SPID. Right on top of one of them. The address is 4750 SPID.
And in my way, I'll take care of it.
4750 Everhart.
90 base.
Thank you.
10-4 base, I have a no-show for mid.
You might as well carry on. I'm trying to keep you from going all the way south.
1209 to 1215.
Carry on south. Use the milk south.
Himself.
We do have a leak coming from the back of the unit. It's a red, oily liquid. 10-4, sir. Maintenance pick off with the check for that. I'll get this to get a bus tracker. 10-4.
This is call on two subjects on Everhart.
I've checked the streets on Everhart. I can't find it. Cancel that call for now.
2110-4.
Do you have anybody on the way to the stripes on
Negative.
Mary Alonzo 10-4.
Okay, well, I'm going to see if I can pick them up. I was letting somebody out, and they came open the door and asked, was I there to pick them up? And I said, no.
409. Please, listening, hearing the disturbance only.
Thank you.
That's 12. 653.
Been trying to call baby and nobody's answering, so
Yep,
that's going to be the best course.
that I do so.
Yeah, I'm here. Maybe he's started already. He's already signed in
with Jennifer.
and I was just waiting here. I thought you were coming.
No, Dolores.
Yeah, no, I'm en route, but I'm stuck in traffic. But you can go ahead and clear up. He's good to go. That's going to be the best course of action right now.
On the way to pick up Jennifer.
Oh, okay, 10-4.
So, Amber, why do you need
He's
to go with
probably here, the police are here, and they picked up a vehicle, so they probably
Yeah, I'm going to
need
clear
a
up
ride.
here in a second. We were en route to go see if we could facilitate with anyone while we were trying to figure out what the caseworker just said. This is going to be the best plan.
That's cab 5.
Alright, well,
maybe calling in a bit, I don't know. I don't know if you heard this other call we're headed to. They haven't called back or anything, but some 18-year-old kid supposedly cutting himself over your motion. But let us get there and we'll see what we can do.
Okay, I'll stay on this side.
Go ahead, cab 5.
Cool. Thank you.
think you're going right next door to that thing over there.
I'm not going to call me, try it again.
Thank you.
Bravo 47-4.
Bravo, 1-8.
Bravo 1-8-4.
Engine 9 to Public Safety, Airport Dispatch.
Engine 9, go ahead.
We're getting dispatched to, again, the 6902 McGloin to your airport tower for another alarm transmission. Can you confirm that if it's accidental or if we need to respond?
10-4, stand by.
10-4. Expires 1/18 of 25. Address out of Galveston is eligible.
We got 1030 here. They're going to go ahead and transport the individual. I'll find out who they're going to transport. I'm going to get the operator to write in to the report. Individual try to get it on. He didn't have enough money. He tried stepping out, and that's when he just went down on the doorstep.
Yeah, on the ramp and advise they have an ice delivery.
Inside the bus, laying on the ground. He was inside the
Yeah, he was like sitting down on the front steps. He might have been laid back, but when I got here, they set him up.
Airport 53. 10-4. Thank you. 10-4. Yeah, just let Carol know once you find out where the transport.
Airport 11 communication.
Right, sir.
Airport 11?
Yeah, 10-4. Operator's going to go ahead and continue. We're doing an incident report when he gets to that.
1337 Peterson. 1337 Peterson. Gonna be for a 70-year-old female who's
Yeah, we're trying to get information from him. For some reason, he's just mumbling. They can't get no. I'm gonna see if they can get an ID from him.
To Robbie Rodriguez.
You can do me a favor and contact 44. Appreciate it.
Actually, 1940. Because I've been working on someone.
Okay. Hey, can you right now? Let me go back to my unit. That's the name of Amanda. I'll go back to my unit. Description just a minute at the Exxon there at Greenwood. And try to assist her to get an animal off the freeway to give her like a little bit of traffic control behind her. She can tell you where the animal is and see if you can just help her out.
44.
Yeah, 10-4. You cut out after Greenwood SPID?
10-4, 921.
Yeah, the Exxon, Greenwood, and SPID, the whatever the gas station is on the same side as the wall. Just stand by here. 44 is
for a 23-year-old female, conscious breathing, has been vomiting. Think she's overdosing. Bravo 1.
Thank you very much.
34. Can you call in, please? Because
Dispatch signal.
That's how the call was put in.
1023, 1044.
That's how the call was put in. RP thinks that she's overdosing.
920 transit, 1044.
Still has my airway and put your shit upstairs.
Roger.
Is headed southbound, right behind the base stop right now on Surfside.
Cab 5 to Cab 10.
Let me head that way then.
Black shirt. It's like a blue cooler on a bike. He's on the 400 block of Bridgeport right now.
Yeah, he's trying to make it to the house building.
Fine for now.
What was that?
I had gone to the task manager and logged out of it, ended the task on everything, and I restarted my computer, and everything seems to be working fine.
Yeah, it's a bigger issue than that. You just got lucky.
10-4.
Yeah, 1-5, go ahead.
Copy 1.
What's up with that call?
Bravo 140.
Yeah, just FYI, my call just posted that I just wrote this down. I'm having issues. They're working on it.
Bravo 140, 10-4. Star 35, I copied that you're in route to the service center.
Yes, 1-5. There's a gentleman here at Wallace. He's riding at La Armada. I'm waiting for these crew members to come out of my water here.
Got a big
of their friends lives, and that's where almost like those brothers that live over there that lived in that shed behind the house. But
call doesn't advise, but they need a unit out there right now to transport, and if it was from a different location, it's going to take too long to get another district unit out there to tell them they can transport.
Delta 270, 10-4, thank you. She'll be 5'8", I'll do the report later.
I'll take it.
She'll be clear.
Charlie 230.
I don't have a name, no phone number, just, driver calling it in. Alright.
One under that underpass. He's right there.
I got him in my sights, man. I'll let you know you're coming, number 5. Well, what can you
got that for medic 3. It's still responding.
Roger
that.
that.
We're available in quarters.
Do you have any idea what bar this is by chance? Because Vancouver is not close to Baldwin at all.
Yes, Tim, I'll make call. There's a Garcia. Delta 110, I'm alright with him, and now we haven't contacted the victim yet.
1-5.
I'll go there, get it.
Skiing Delta 110. Delta 110 is that seashore.
Number 15.
I didn't hear him.
Did that answer your question?
I didn't hear what was said.
The update on your ticket. Does it make sense now?
I'll let you queued up.
You're going to some bar
That we can
on
cancel.
Baldwin.
Bravo 1.
Fine, thanks. 470, transport available?
Bravo 160 clear. Bravo 180 clear.
I'm right here by Gulfway. I'll go to Gulfway.
Hey, you still show that call out here on Quito? We cleared that one.
I'm gonna clear my part.
Tried calling him twice now, and I sent him a text, or sorry, 3 times now, and I sent him a text message, and the last time I called him went straight to voicemail. You want to try calling him once before I know job this?
Well, 7, sorry about that. She wants the cash, you don't want the cash. She wants the cash, don't want the cash. Now a friend's giving her a ride.
And it was taken from, he believed inside like the storage room or something was open, and this guy came in and took it. But this guy supposedly took like a circular call yesterday, and all he wants is, the guy over here, all he wants is, he didn't even think he could get his ice chest back, he just wants a CTW on the guy.
Drop by.
Well, there's
another way around.
Stuff like that in the cooler. Here, I mean, we can figure out
water hole, I guess she took a ride
wanna,
with her parents.
Make sure he makes the ride, you know what I mean? Yeah, we can 12 him, we need to 12 him because it's the same guy, Billy, from the Jetty. Yeah, no, I know.
The door, and then her parents showed up, so they dropped her off.
There at the seashell end? Yeah, 10-4.
Alright, so you know,
alright, I'll head over there here in a second. Hey, Carl, you want to swing by where I'm at and see if we'll pick up this bike and put it in there? Yeah, I'll swing by and grab that bike on my way back.
Star 20.
I'll be exiting 358 eastbound 8 of Johnson. Frank Paul William 1617. Frank Paul William 1617.
Frank Paul William 1617.
We're going back 3, I got it free for it.
Pulling to the mattress firm next to Roy's base tackle.
Oil dog 3.
Mattress firm.
So, that's where I'll be going, and I asked Ed to help me out on that, please.
Okay.
10-4, Evidence 215, 10-4.
1700 block, Cantwell.
9, person on call so they can generate a report for race and industry transport. But again, as a sick call. The park officer just pulled up next to me. I'm just going to put that bike in his truck and get me over at the seashell.
If you add up all the dots,
alright, I'll meet you there.
It adds up to 25. 1700 block.
EJJC and do it all on paper. What a drag. Okay, 10-4. Yeah, I can get on paper.
Come back.
Use their computer there because they're saying it's and their computer's hardwired.
I can barely hear you.
Is the phone message? Awesome.
10-4.
You know, that computer in itself. Yes, ma'am. You think it's my issue and I just got it. Hey, Daryl, I'm already here. Is it already written up?
Oh, no, it's No, you're alright.
No, I still got to work on it, man. I haven't been able to do anything with it, really. few liners.
Service at the stripes, Agnes and Brownlee, 1601 Agnes. Contact Eric Adam 450. Can you copy for message?
Back to the original call.
I'm going to spell the last name for you. Mary Ida George, a disturbance, Nora Edward, with a Charles Ocean, leave, heavyset female, number 818. We have a 335 requested on that. 7170.
This job and call me, please.
It's going to be reference your call at 11930 Leopard.
NCJGC, I will leave.
Yeah, I'm here to pick up Sarah, 410 Marion Circle.
5140.
I knocked on the door twice. Called her 4 times.
We have it as Riverview at Colorado Apartments.
Not answering. I heard somebody in there. I heard the dog barking. She declined to answer the door.
Are you?
Pretty fresh. I was right around the corner of Lynn Parkway. Came right over here. I was here in like 5 minutes.
370724.
Yeah, I made contact. I'm on standby for
So it's been the magical hour.
Ollie here, so.
All in that time frame.
Alright, 10-4.
3 Rescue 3. Correction, Medic 3 Rescue 3. Medic 3 Rescue 3. Difficulty breathing 1533 South Brownlee, 1533 South Brownlee, Amistad. It's going to be a 61-year-old male short of breath in the lobby. Work off of EMS 1, 1247.
Medic 3 got the EMS 1.
Alright.
Rescue 3 up.
For a fall, 809 Dairy, 809 Dairy, Seabury Senior Homes, apartment 1303, 1303. It's going to be for, RV calling for their neighbor that fell down. You can contact with the patient right now. You can just work off EMS 1 at 1248.
I got a signal 25 central.
Okay.
Esperanza, Fabian,
Contact over Shoreline and Cooper Valley.
Edward, David, Robert, Adam, Zebra, Adam.
Yeah, we're still waiting on that replacement unit. The operator was supposed to meet a relief operator out at the Walmart on Greenwood at 12:45. Do you want to let the? I want to check and see if that relief driver is already waiting at the relief point.
That's how I handle quotes. I do have a ticket.
Just call down.
They want the ride. Then all we gotta do is
I have administered 4 of Zofran and we're about
like I did.
4 minutes out.
Very SUV. Almost 3 hours. That's a lot.
Setting up ahead of time, basically.
Hey, I'm here at CDC with him. LCO mobile?
Yeah, I guess people, they call them quotes.
Hey, you call me?
You know, it takes time to put all that in and, you know.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not getting my call.
And then they call back.
Who's calling us?
All that time.
What's the last one on the event number?
I just shoot it out like a ticket. And actually try to put on there also quotes. Then I kill it. So then when they call back,
I got
all
brought
I
in by
gotta do
service
is shoot it out.
that he started having
Alright, man, cool, thanks.
the network job, so we sat on him for about 3 hours before he got back. He had paperwork and everything. He said his vitals, blood work, everything was fine.
Down to 2 medics, medic 15 and medic 2. And have a call that just dropped, 2609 Tarleton. I'm recommending an
I'm
ample
around
medic.
you because 9 did a signal 25. When you do that,
we'll move
you're
up
out
to
back.
2.
So that's why I'm giving her this call.
Medic 13, we're available.
10-4.
To your house.
9's loaded.
That's been vomiting, is conscious and breathing. Work off EMS 1, 1252. Medic 13, I'll show you available. Bride, 210 McBride at TC Distributors. It's going to be a water flow, work off my dispatch 1252. Engine 3, okay? Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to stick out of this system sometimes.
I don't know. I think they need some escort. We should come back and ask. They'll advise when they're back in service.
Same place, Twin Peaks. They're going to Ingleside. This is a call.
Code 1 Bay Area, begin my
Roger that. Finish. I got another quick call holding. Do you speak Spanish?
Can you get the address of Charleston again?
So no.
10 Roger, 2609 Charleston.
Please, you're being tied up with personal. Turn into the pallet, I'll read better than nothing.
We're getting the fire call over service temporarily for customer service. Going to 150?
Roger that. Want me to call you on the phone?
134. 4201 S City.
120, Charlie 1.
Charlie 220 to 2930. So that Mel's coming up to you. He's aggressive first. He's just yelling, wants confrontation. Simple.
No, actually we had
4900 errors, 4900 errors.
7504.
Alright. I assume that's
10-4, sir. Thank you.
Danica Garcia, 10-4, stand by.
I had my duty right next to the flag.
Garcia or Garza?
I'm sorry, Garza. Yeah.
10-4, that was my mistake. Bye-bye.
Yeah, they're outside looking for you.
No, foreign line.
Okay, I'm right here at the 30 buildings. I've looked here before. They got these things all jacked up. Okay, let me turn around. I think I know where they're at.
Yeah, she said it's like behind the office.
10-4, 1104.
Alright, rest
I'm off duty and service regular duty.
10-4.
He's logging off.
By the way,
0530.
it sounds like it might be.
Okay, that can wait then.
19.
And then the theft at Colt, that can wait too. They have a
This
call
calls
back.
are along this right now. Yesterday morning he was
Negative,
picked
there
up.
hasn't been any other
Also,
calls.
he's wanting to know if it was a flat right
Yeah, the
yesterday.
attendant's already gone, so. Alright, thanks.
Negative.
Right at 1258.
1 back 9, go ahead.
Still on the air.
20.
20.
Shoreline, 0.1.
Got 20, go ahead.
2-1, I'll put that in your call.
What time did you come in?
Thank you, man.
Came in at
140, I'll call you back for any
1930,
additional.
Okay.
Thank you. Just some paperwork caught up.
To Pacheco, so I got him first.
All good.
Right, 10-4, but you have two canceled. Mary Elena Aguiaga
22.
and then Frank Marquez.
22.
No?
Good morning.
1800 Mark Marquez.
4.
Yes, ma'am, this unit 1005, okay, the AC stoplight is on. The other
Where am I going?
AC light is showing a code.
31.
The unit's very warm. I recommend a change out for this one.
3031.
10-4.
She's the inbound 19 to from Port Ayers to Staple Street.
10-4.
Come back.
10-4.
Yeah, Bay, out of zone. 1095 with the guy that they had detained and 220 going with me.
Manifest number 180, logging on
I
at
was just going to
6:38.
ask you if I was doing the lunch relief for sure.
Coming out.
What days did you have?
The 1-5.
Well, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but
1-5, go ahead.
Thursday, she mentioned something else.
What time did you come in?
Stand by.
I didn't log on till 10 o'clock.
Is CIT-1 available or no?
Check. CIT-1 on patrol grid.
0.1.
Yep.
Code 121.
That just occurred.
1-5.
Contact of Lieutenant Benitez is going to be a disturbance between a mother and her 12-year-old daughter. Daughter left the area.
Quick 7.
Unknown direction.
Roger that.
Over.
110.
1042. Wants to have a psych evaluation done. We do have a blood pressure of 150 over 98, heart rate of 103. He's sitting at 98% on room air. He's currently alert and oriented times 4. Each day is going to be about 5 minutes. Said he tried to overdose on meth last night,
Short.
and today he wants to get evaluated.
Personal.
Copy that. We'll see you at 5.
To base.
PC2 to PC9. Go ahead. Disregard that about lunch. The hearing office.
Yeah, I'm headed south for
102 radio check.
Loud and clear.
102 clear, thank you.
Put me on that disturbance in progress.
Individual
10 Charlie, 10-4.
Radio check.
59, I'm clear, and I'm going to go ahead and head to Zavala. 10-4.
Big one, 909, 10-4, thank you.
2160
10-4, 1014 clear.
ISD Early Childhood Center, 617 Purdue at the Flower Bluff ISD Early Childhood Center.
Lobster.
There's a Cyber Highway 286 southbound at Kalahar, 286 southbound at Kalahar. It's going to be an older dark blue truck with a camper, speeding, trying to hit the RV vehicle. Last seen on Highway 58 eastbound, coming up to your stores. Patrol 3 and 4 at 1308.
Message for Mr. Ramon Mendez. He said he was trying to call earlier to schedule a trip, but he wasn't able to get through. He was going to try again.
Private.
4.
Logging off.
Also, Miss Mary Sosa, was that a...
Yeah, I'm signing off. I don't know if you saw right there where that job ended, and all of a sudden I had another job for the exact same amount or not.
Yes, ma'am.
Radio check. Which was a cancel.
Alright, base 10-4. Also, Mr. Flowers, he was a no-show and still on my ranger.
415.
And 4 base.
For radio check.
This person, 4138 airs, 4138 airs.
1024 radio check.
At the Porters Shopping Center.
Area arriving 173.
10-4, 1023 clear.
Bravo 160, go to mobile, please.
918 to Charlie 30 to check.
Charlie 160 and Charlie 230.
Charlie 160, step 1 man route.
1024
3
radio check.
males in the beige Fiat. That's near the plasma store.
1024 copy, have a good day, sir.
Now you're eating, and I think JR's eating. When y'all are done, come in. They need the units. And Daryl, you're in the route over here. You're already here. Is that right?
There.
Saturday,
1022, 10-4, thank you. I'm back in quarters.
Back in quarters, 10-4. Okay, 10-4. Your Medic 3, Rescue 3, unconscious patient, Roseville Cemetery, 2731 Comanche Street, 2731 Comanche Street, conscious Blunt's Street.
914 transit radio check.
It's a 28-year-old female, unconscious but breathing. She's pregnant, 15 weeks. Information still updating.
For sure. I just drove to Robertson. I was already standing by here.
Late cancel.
10-4. 4, thank you.
For Charles at Hancock Avenue. Called the phone number. I'm not getting an answer. And I'm not sure where to pick him up at. I'm at the main entrance.
Personal?
No, I just on my screen. I guess we both got the same call.
Thank you.
10-4.
Tab 8 just came in after I changed that address.
Possible mental issues group. Refusing to leave. It's going to be... Subject was last seen on the backside of the hotel. Walking towards Home Depot.
Charlie 220 route.
1021, dispatch radio check.
There.
Negative.
10-4. Also, can you reset my DRI 2304
2930.
please?
Are you available for a minor at Holly and Staples?
8 transit radio check, please.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
There.
10-4. It's going to be a
Can I have the
silver
individual, please?
Caucasian, a gray Mazda, and a white Jeep.
Radio check.
And can you reset my DRI block paddle 19?
Do you know where he or she is?
They're on the way in a relief car.
Not a problem, because I was... Okay, not a problem.
2930. I'm reading the call. It says that it might be 4 vehicles and they're stuck at the intersection. Can you send me one more for traffic control until I get there?
2930, 10-4. Any unit that can clear for traffic control for a minor at Holly and Staples.
14-2.
Repeating 1-809-04-2655.
Gene, go ahead.
Copy down plate. King William Boy 0858.
10-4. King William Boy 0858, 10-4. 305.
Is that Chanel?
Ford Fusion,
Yes, ma'am.
silver in color. The other vehicle's a gray Mazda.
Okay, sweetie. What time did you start and what's the answer?
Campus 101 Ballway.
27 and my
Building,
manifest.
2 females heading each other. One got out of a silver Chevy passenger car on the Naples and Shealy side of the college. And one female left on the vehicle.
BPW has not reported. This is an African-American female wearing dark green shirt and black pants in the area of 6 point. All units acknowledged.
I'm on my way. I got it. 10-15, 10-4. 10-4, thank you. 10-23, 10-4. 280. 10-4. Okay, mother and daughter fight, and mother's walking off, doesn't want to do a thing about it. 920, 10-4. 10-4.
Once they've been taken, it eases up. Start to play the video and it eases up.
909, 10-4.
Alright,
individual line.
You're Charlie what?
Charlie 240.
Bench for radio check.
I know you got
Loud and clear?
4. No, when I get done here, I'll have this
We have someone at the office, signal 25. If there could be a volunteer, we would love it.
Put some notes in the call. Show me good.
Miss Carter, she's walking away 3s, or number 2 speaking 3s right now. Will be okay.
10-4, yes, sir. But then we're okay. And I'm still here. Get a hold of me for a little bit.
And could you have that person bring out some cash receipts, please?
10-4.
Will not start, and we have operators there.
That's 10-4.
10-4, headed that way.
Forward to base.
10-4.
Can you please call Franco's? I'm at the Seagulf Villa Apartments. Been here 3 minutes already and nobody's come out.
280, 10-4.
Doesn't look like there's one at Staples and Holly.
It says to pick up, drop off at bus stop on Water and Chelsea. I don't know what that's. How to say it.
Yeah, this is just fine.
Yeah, I went there too and nobody was there.
Then maybe she'll be there. Not wait for 5 and then you can go.
10-4. Okay, thanks.
Charlie 20.
This person I'm picking up Seagulf, is it a female?
10-4, Charlie 250 is
So,
Delta 270, 10-4. Or child.
Here, it was a guy here, but I think he's a case arm or something, but I was wondering.
Got it. My UNV.
okay, give me your time. Did you wait the 5 minutes?
The date of the
Yes,
23rd.
I think I've been here 5 minutes already.
The 24th.
I arrived at 9:13.
24th, 10-4.
Okay, you have to mistrip it, okay? Just put mistrip, put your times and your mileage. 41, Blanca Rivera, 2601 Mary Street, going to 3036 Saratoga, John Paul High School.
May I have a road supervisor, please, no problem?
Want the report box too?
Into JJC.
JJC 10-4.
Zero, go to mobile.
Okay, supervisor to base.
The hit and run occur at that started all this with the EUMV at 7352 Woodridge.
Straight to base.
I'm doing that as well.
I'm on I-37, barely going to Robinson.
We're using case
I don't know if I'm going to make it or not. I mean, for the 945 that you just gave me, I have another 915.
I know, I'm sorry guys, I think we're just gonna have to run a little bit late. Route 4 is like running late too, and a lot of other ones. If y'all can help, please help. I mean,
Delta 280 clear.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay, then you give me a 947. I'll just continue. 1805 Jordan Drive, 1805 Jordan Drive, cross the Yukon and Ryan. Give me for 93-year-old male whose left arm is in pain. On this freeway, work on the EMS 1328.
No, some days is
The car
always
was stolen. They got they were able to get a plate, right?
One to base, have a no-show, 4 and set. Juarez, 905, 925, and you're welcome, base.
And he was walking across Morgan, down the alleyway behind.
Building 5 at the Woodbury Place apartment?
What's this at for?
Okay. He was coming from which direction? Over there at the apartment complex off the 10th in that area over there?
Nope. I don't know where anything is at this place. I have gotten lost here the whole anytime. I just tried to find number 5, but it's not next to number 4.
I guess the north side of Morgan. I think that's where he came from. Those 2-story apartments up there.
Go behind Whataburger, that first entrance, and stay to your left. You're going to see the office. Keep on going, and then
You're gonna keep building side. Get a DRI reset.
Park right in front of the gate to exit, and she's right there to the right-hand side.
Fight in progress at Mohawk and Huron. Mohawk and Huron. RP decline contact.
Okay, I think I've dropped her off before.
We'll speak to her.
Alright, hopefully I can... Yeah, alrighty. 10-4, thank you.
Told to another male, advising there's another male in black clothing walking towards Cheyenne and Virginia.
Robinson over here at the Cabana on Everhard. It says
Looks like the town car is still
off of Middle
at Mohawk and Huron at the K store.
I don't remember ever picking up. I don't see any, what do you call it, mailboxes. I just remember picking up at the dumpster. Is it close to there? The mailboxes are somewhere right there by the dumpster. Has anybody ever picked up Belvo Robinson
and stuff together.
at Cabana on Everhard?
Yeah, where we at on that deal?
The mailboxes are on the back. By Middle Cop, make a left on the back of the apartment, and the mailboxes are going to be there.
Well, your first mistake, we should have had to take him to Memorial. They would have taken care of him. He'd have died.
I'll check it out. Thank you.
Yeah, that Clayton Holmes, I think we took that report yesterday.
Somebody's sleeping in there.
Base. That's what the report we took there yesterday was. I need a private, people destroying the home. What's wrong with that one? Okay.
The display screen on the jump there, you can get it to lighten up.
Okay.
Zero transit. Manage.
305 and 314, wanted to start 1529?
Yes, sir.
For 1017 or what?
Yes, sir, 1017. Maintenance held on to it. They didn't have it on the list.
Item 1. 920 radio check.
Go ahead.
Clear?
Or it's going to be a different, I guess, an apartment or a different house. Did you want her to do the TRU and just add to the original report?
That will be satisfactory. I don't think there'll
Cardo,
be much good for us to go out there.
To Brian? Somebody on the Cardo.
I guess treatment truck. It's east from driver advice. It's half full of
I'm pretty sure I was told to Brian.
and
The
the transmission
truck. He's at
broke.
the
He has a
end
mechanic
of
around
one of
right
these
now.
townhouse lanes. I think it's entry 3.
Charlie 15210-4, is there anything spilled? Do we need fire department?
There's cars in there, so I had to wait on the
He's trying to figure out if he gets towed or not. The weight and
That's not
everything.
correct.
Right now, he has a mechanic around.
What's the address?
We'll go from there.
98
Did you need another?
Townhouse Lane.
Negative, ma'am. I have the
Walmart?
turn lanes blocked off from SDID westbound to Ayers.
10-4.
Gate, please.
Be fine, should take a TRU.
Thank you, ma'am.
There, but it's by Ennis Jocelyn. It's where all the pretty houses are. Oh,
Negative.
Carriage Park? Oh, okay. In there. I don't remember.
10-7, log map, thank you.
Charlie 170 for the missing juvenile. 5014 Williams Drive, 5014
Too dangerous to go
Williams
in there.
Drive. Contact Jessica Zuniga.
930. No injuries. Nobody's going to be transported.
930. No injuries, no transport. 10-4. Charlie, two copy.
Brian, my times are 9:51 to 9:56.
3812-5126. 3812-5126.
Hoover.
Oh, no,
He said, but no contact. If they have a no-show for Janelle Ross over here at CB Senior Apartments, I honked twice, and then I was here from 1336 to 1341.
96-1
What's your base?
610.
You put Manuel de Leon on another route?
Deal out of San Juan, status is base.
At 12:55.
Oh, okay, because I saw another bus just leave right now from where I'm
12:33.
gonna pick them up. That's why I was wondering.
No, I didn't.
You gonna put you on it?
Alright, 27601.
160. Back in service. 160, 1024 to transit 10-8.
Loot and Ojota. 613 of 78.
Ford to base.
Alberto and Ojota. 613 of 78. Last subject's gonna be Brady Hernandez. 910 of 85. Brady Hernandez, 910 of 85.
Manuel de Leon never came out. It's already been 6 minutes.
We're at clear, stolen vehicle.
10:04.
Georgetown Zebra 8940. Georgetown Zebra 8940. 2012 GMC brown in color.
recovered at 2205 Morris Street, today's date, authority 14921.
We got that pretty strong rain.
Patrol 3 at 1344.
Already here.
101 George, 1945.
1047.
Today? You want to perform Sandra Hager? Alright, I perform her instead of Blanca.
148.
I think she might have boarded a bus. I don't know if somebody mentioned that. I think there was a call about her yesterday, I thought. She was kind of doing the same thing in that area or something like that at the plaza.
Yeah, they said it's going to be the same exact girl from yesterday, and I guess all she does is she raises a fit about a phone, takes off, catches a bus.
Okay, simple. Here's an A, work orders.
2008.
The name temperate.
On Brownlee and Costa Terraces 1.
6402 Weber. 6402 Weber at the Dolphins Landing Apartment, Unit G, George 8. It's going to be for an 86-year-old female complaining of pain. Work off of Fire Dispatch 1229.
What I gave you, that's all I'm going to give you, 10-4?
10-4.
That's it? Okay. Do you want more or do you want more? I'll call you.
Cancel Erica Coronado.
At the Dolphins Landing Apartment, work off at EMS 1 1230.
10-4, thank you.
Fire Department 4625 Castores. Gaslight Apartment. Suspect's going to be in a brown beanie, blue shirt. He has a knife. He's going to be on the Sunnybrook side.
On a black Nissan.
Open your mind.
Sir, you got the wrong location. I'm at 2900 Cimarron.
For 2900 is not verifying. I'm trying to...
3110-4.
13. For Maria Elena Riera, 10-4 base, I responded in a bill. 13. Okay, thank you. And hold on, I'm almost done here.
Only a jerk can cut through all that stuff, but just trying to get over there.
10-4. Bravo 120, can you back up 1930 at Cimarron and Denver? No.
Right up to 12:30, please. Cancel all day for 10-4 base, thank you. 12 o'clock, 14:30.
25 base, 10-8 from having lunch.
11:34 to 12:44.
11:34, base, 12:34.
Can someone open the gate, please?
Safety first, and do not create any wave for the base. 10-4.
10-4, go ahead.
0205 is ready.
Attention all units. Attention all units. Be advised, we do have heavy rain in the area causing standing water.
Thank you.
Please be advised to slow your speed.
I know.
Increase your following distance. Remember,
Here's the bird.
schedule second. Try not to create
I
any waves.
know.
All drivers acknowledge.
1024, 10-4.
Spelling on the last is Sam Ocean Robert, Ocean Lincoln Adam, and it's 2003 Craig Street.
1020, tempo.
Go ahead one more time. Spelling in the last.
911 10-4. 10-4, it's Sam Ocean, Robert Ocean, Lincoln Adam. 10-4, Charlie 110.
Check it, President, for me. Last name Gonzalez with a Z. First name Daniel. Date of birth is 8/14 of 79.
1023, 10-4.
Negative.
Negative all the way around.
Everhard and SPID.
Any female officer available on patrol 3 or 4, acknowledge.
Thank you. Down for Route 32 and
Coldwater with approximately 78-year-old male. She complained patient had lost his balance, falling to the ground. His wife witnessed. At the time, patient was lying alert, displaying some left leg discomfort. Patient was able to get up into a sitting position. Patient signed as a doctor, wishes the patient to be evaluated. Patient will be alert at this time. We have a blood pressure of 139/87, pulse 74.
They're okay there at the Gaslight apartment. And Charlie 210? So 270 alive.
Before you go to the food bank, can you stop at Costa to go in the apartment and pick up Ricardo Torres and drop him off after Skylark at Furman for going for your 1500 sir, please?
She said that she's been trying to call.
You want me to go after the charities? I got those two.
Closed.
Go after the charities,
She
they'll
can't
be
get a hold
fine.
of anyone.
Yeah, because nobody came in till go after the charities too, they'll be fine.
No, they're going to answer. Or, you know, at least soon.
Persons at 1055, 1055, do not board the individual. They will stay copy.
Yes, I was trying to explain to her what's the situation.
1022, 10-4.
1013, 10-4. 720, 10-4. No, he's not, but I am. Go ahead.
Private, please.
1002, 10-4.
Are you out with them or no? 913, 10-4. Yes. 915, 10-4.
To Gulfway Motel, ETA.
We have an accident at the La Mexicana at 4214 Aaron. One of the vehicles is going to be with the juvenile department. Did y'all want to handle the accident since it is a private property?
He's the Route 20. Putting him out of Staples Station. His gym fare is not taking dollars, sir.
What route is it?
Charlie 270. Here on for disturbance of progress. Going to be 4318 Hy-Vee Lane. Contact Carol.
Transfer. We're still out. What were you saying? To Route 1145 and 1245. Well, thank you.
Okay, Delta 1. Do we have any 36th Street?
Emergency response.
Central Maintenance CMS Station 2B, Route 1617, Cimarron Street, number 3, B as in boy, 1617 Cimarron Street, number 3 is B as in boy. We reference the unknown age female that slipped and fell. She's inside the apartment, 1617 Cimarron Street, number 3, B as in boy.
10-4, have a nice day.
Sunday, relax. None, big.
Honey?
Go ahead, then.
Clear.
Number.
Thank you.
23.
No, 33, 33.
Hey, do you have a number for Jose Juarez?
U230 clear.
Charlie 1 clear.
Me and 160. It's going to be a disturbance with a male and a female over custody.
You're having another medical
748. It should come back to a white Honda.
What's number?
I'm sorry, Hyundai or whatever.
We didn't get an answer.
10-4. And Micardo, Arizona Micardo by Valero.
10-4.
1399, did you copy that?
1127.
Did he board a bus or what?
That's 10-4. He needs a 1054.
10-4. 23. Please call the office at 23.
See some bird.
Charlie 260 Weber and Holly.
At Lexington Baptist parking lot, working on this 5-8.
Some bird.
Charlie 240.
Charlie 240.
27. Disregard him. Disregard that.
Mike, because his son, I guess, he suffers from bipolar and,
Yeah, I know.
what is it, PTSD.
and he tried killing himself last night, and when ambulance and cops showed up, he ran away, and he said he doesn't know what to do with the kid anymore. You know, I'm still going to enter him, but he's just saying he doesn't know what to do, or he doesn't know who to talk to about it, so I was telling him about CID. There's a court date coming up there.
1016, 10-4. 919, radio check, please.
3 base on 1044. Go ahead and come on in, thank you. 10-4, thank you, you're welcome.
Vehicle evidence in quarters.
No worries.
You open the gate, please.
Cab 19, pick up that call. Cab 19, Tom.
Database.
Got it. Quick, because there's 2 police units here watching your mouth for, I think, something.
Database, can I get my trip to 2002?
Driver seat for the Dome 16 Transit 10-7. 1024 radio JPH, your facility, approximately 6 or 7 minutes.
00924391. I repeat, Norcom 00924391. And that's going to be for public intoxication drug.
Round trip.
Started at
4207. I repeat, Norcom 00924207. And that's going to be possession of drug paraphernalia. 4208. And that's going to be for public intoxication drug.
1016 Transit 10-8.
10-4, I sent it over.
4, thank you.
Charlie 110 and Charlie 230, so it's in progress at 4254 South Alameda. Contact 1.
110.
Charlie 110 and 230, it's going to be a suspect, white male, bald, white shirt, with the buttons and red stripes. He's in a white truck.
It's a no-show?
Yeah. Right, 1300.
Taking a lunch break, 1300 to 1400. And I hope you got me help on Texan Trail at 1252. 1252, I had called in because I knew I couldn't make it back to Texan Trail in time for that.
1 to dispatch radio check.
Did you have flight wrong time upon expiration?
Yeah, plus that won't come.
Both lower and low.
Thank you for your time. And she said she was going to take a look at the route, and apparently she didn't. Go pick it up. Yes, sir. Please, go pick it up. Cell phone when you get a chance, sir. I need to do a 10-7 bad. You have plenty of time. It's a 1252 pickup. You can pick it up in the window, okay? I'm sorry. But just go ahead and go pick it up.
I'm a little early.
What about my lunch? Go pick it up, and then afterwards you can take a 30-minute lunch, okay? Just 1 second, sorry. I'm doing a 10-7 right now. I have to. That's fine. Thank you.
I'm headed.
Altered. However,
Okay, you want to increase it just a hair on B-Train? Motor feed water?
For you able, I'll do it. Initially 79%. Respiration at 30.
Yeah, 45 blue in color.
32. However, we got it
Ahead.
4% on a non-rebreather.
Okay, you want to increase it just a hair on B-Train?
Our arrival patient was
Motor feed water?
For you able, I'll do it. Just gave her 125 of solumedrol. Patient is showing a sinus tach
45 blue in color.
at 124 with
Ahead. Listen to the lump.
multifocal.
What's up with the MS1 at 1234?
Like, let me respond.
At this point, we're not giving her another albuterol treatment, and we should be there in approximately
Medic 10 back in quarters.
10 minutes.
10-10-4.
The boots and the big hood.
You extra C, say south end of the 50. That probably all that. Thank you.
No any movement. Cargo not coming.
Copy that, Chief. We'll kick it back on shortly.
Okay.
Delta 430.
330 North 3rd Street for a 37-year-old female. Feeling weak, like she's gonna pass out, and that's like...
And an incredible 1.3 kilometer speed.
The doors are locked.
While these extreme distances pose their own challenges, engineers must also any crossing must allow for a clear footpath that is at least 400 meters long, with 70 meters clearance above the water's surface and at least 20 meters clearance into the depths. To deliver this, the project team are considering numerous different types of crossing for this fjord. The first is a traditional suspension. With a 3,700 metre crossing, such a structure would be almost double the length of the world's current longest bridge, and would require support towers at least 450 metres tall, significantly eclipsing the 343 metre tall Millau Viaduct in France to become the world's tallest bridge structure. A floating bridge is also being considered. However, this structure would need to raise to allow ships to pass, and achieving such a feature in a bridge that is only anchored to each shoreline poses considerable engineering challenges that are yet to be overcome. In a similar proposal to that found at Sulafjord, a submerged floating tunnel is also being considered. This proposal would differ slightly to its counterparts due to the extreme depth of some fjords. Rather than being tethered to the sea, the tunnels would be suspended from floating pontoons that would allow ships to pass overhead. A hybrid proposal is also being considered, combining a floating pontoon bridge with a portion of submerged floating tunnel that allows ships to pass. Whilst fixed bridges transferring into fixed tunnels is not an uncommon solution in waterways with high shipping traffic, such as the link between Denmark and Sweden and the extensive Hong Kong to Macau crossing, combining the two floating structures in this way would create the world's first example of such a solution. Finally, a proposal for a multi-span cable-stayed bridge is under review. This structure would feature 4 floating pylons tethered to the sea floor, rather like oil rigs. With safety and environmental considerations being of the utmost importance, Norway's vast coastal highway project is set to become a new benchmark in engineering capabilities and a model for future infrastructure projects around the world. If you enjoyed this video and would like to get more from the definitive video channel for construction, subscribe to the B1M.
natural disasters, climate change, overcrowding. Big problems demand even bigger solutions. It's a new era for engineering. We can build our way out of anything. Under the Bering Strait, to feed a global appetite for goods and energy, the longest underwater tunnel in the world. This is mega engineering.
And just for welcome to the Bering Strait Tunnel.
It was a normal process of walking through a Supreme Court nomination.
And entering the Russian Federation. Have your passport ready for inspection.
Hey, you've been out here telling me what to do for half an
Just inside the Arctic Circle lies the Bering Strait, a narrow seaway that separates Alaska and Russia. It doesn't seem like there's much out here, but some see a gold mine. Here, Russia and America almost touch, separated by 55 miles of icy ocean. To the east, the U.S. economy, consuming 25% of the world's energy. To the west, in Russian Siberia, a trove of natural resources. Oil, diamonds, and some of the largest natural gas reserves in the world. South of that, Chinese ports crammed with goods destined for the U.S. market. Today, nearly 75% of all goods traveling between North America and Asia move by ship. But what if we could replace these with this? What if Chinese goods could reach the U.S. in days instead of weeks? By traveling through an underwater tunnel between Asia and North America, Russia could supply the Americas with all the natural gas they could ever want. A railroad and a pipeline, stretching all the way from Shanghai in Siberia to Los Angeles. Because of the Earth's curvature, a train route from China up through Russia and over to the U.S. can actually be shorter than shipping from Asia across to California. The tunnel would cost up to $70 billion, but it could save trillions. It would be an engineering feat unprecedented in scale and difficulty. To construct it, builders would have to solve extraordinary problems. At over 60 miles, it would be more than twice the length of any existing tunnel. It would have to stand up to brutal Arctic conditions. Building materials would have to withstand relentless freezing and thawing. Construction crews would have to work at the bottom of the Arctic Ocean. And on the surface, endure temperatures of 40 degrees below zero.
You can go into hypothermic shock really fast. You won't realize it at first when it happens.
Engineers would need to design a fire-safe tunnel, capable of withstanding frequent tremors and an earthquake up to 7.9 on the Richter scale. Impossible? Maybe not. Workers are already tackling similar problems half a world away. In Istanbul, Turkey, builders are using new techniques to construct one of the world's deepest tunnels. Here, crews are building an underwater train line beneath the Bosporus Strait. Istanbul is a divided city, with one part in Europe and the other in Asia. Like the Bering Strait structure, this tunnel will join two continents and span a vast sea. With a population of 11 million, this ancient city is one of the most congested in the world.
In Istanbul, we are currently having a very serious traffic problem, even though we have two bridges for motor vehicles. Once the project is completed, both continents will be connected by a suburban train and an intercity freight and public transportation system.
Bridges are expensive and interfere with shipping traffic. So to add capacity, planners have opted for a tunnel instead of another bridge. Their plan calls for an 8.5-mile-long underwater railroad line to carry cargo, cars, and trucks 150 feet beneath the sea. To build it, they are using an innovative design called a submerged tunnel. Surprisingly, the entire structure is actually built on land. Then pieces of the tunnel are floated out and assembled underwater. It's a technique that might work in the Arctic, with a few modifications. In Istanbul, workers first built a massive dry dock, where they constructed 11 442-foot-long boxes called elements. Each element is wide enough for 2 trains to run side by side. The crews then floated each box out into the strait, positioned it precisely above the seabed, and sunk the element.
You hang the boxes from several points, and when you take water into the elements, it will be heavier than the water, and gradually you can lower the elements to the seabed.
Once the segments were connected underwater, the tunnel pieces were buried in sand to protect them. Now, in the last stages of construction, the elements are still connected to the surface through access shafts in the middle of the strait, one of the busiest commercial waterways in the world.
There are huge vessels passing through the Istanbul Bosporus, and it is very risky for us during the construction.
If a ship were to go off course, even a little, it could crash right through the work site, flooding the tunnel. But that's not the only worry. As near the Bering Strait, this is earthquake country. A quake could be devastating to the workers 150 feet below. In an emergency, their only hope is an underwater chamber stocked with vital supplies. What they call the panic room.
We are going down 150 feet to reach the 11 elements below.
Hasan Gökdere is the site foreman.
There are about 30 people down at the elements, and we're going back.
Hasan is the only person authorized to escort visitors down to see the panic room and the inside of the tunnel.
Location complicated. Getting violent, hitting his head on the floor.
We are currently 150 feet below the Bosphorus Strait. In case of an emergency, like a breach in the tubes or shaft, we all come to one of these panic rooms. This is the panic room. This is the water supply. This is the food. And this is the communications link to the land site. These pipes and valves are what we use to supply air to the workers. Here we can supply air up to a maximum of 40 people for up to 10 days.
If the tunnel were to break away,
There's a normal process of walking through a Supreme
these joints. This is where box number 6 and 7 meet. Up on land, each element was walled shut. Down here, crews first weld the boxes together at these joints and then carve out the inner walls. It's the most dangerous step in the process. Once the walls are removed, the joined elements form one long rectangular tube. This speed is now cutting down the protective walls between sections 7 and 8.
Hey, you've been out here telling me what to do for half an hour and it ain't working for you.
The crew has to remove 40 tons of metal. 3 weeks of hot, back-breaking work. Now the team is just months from completing the tunnel that they began to build 6 long years ago. The submerged tunnel is one of the fastest and least expensive methods of underwater construction. And in Istanbul, it's well suited to local conditions. But could it work in the Bering Strait? The most obvious difference between the two locations is on the surface. The Bering Strait is frozen almost 10 months a year, which could dictate much of the construction process. This way, during the long winters, crews could save the cost of building a dry dock. They could build their segments right on the ice, directly above where they want to sink them. Then in the summer, the segments could quickly be submerged. But it turns out that the most significant obstacle would be below the surface. For a submerged tunnel to work, as in Istanbul, engineers need a smooth sea bottom and soft soil in which to lay the tunnel. But under the Bering Sea, the seabed is sometimes rocky and it's full of uneven hills, so the topography could complicate construction. That means that engineers may have no choice but to turn to a slower, more expensive, and even more dangerous method. They'd have to carve a tunnel below the sea floor. If engineers can't submerge a tunnel below the Bering Strait to link Alaska and Russia, then they'd have to dig a tunnel below the seafloor instead. That would mean carving through more than 60 miles of Arctic rock beneath a frigid ocean, doubling the length of any underwater tunnel. Luckily, recent advances in the design of gigantic tunnel boring machines, or TBMs, could make such a feat possible. TBMs are building-sized machines that can grind their way through almost any kind of rock. The Bering Strait Tunnel would require a machine similar to this one, the Herring Connect Gripper, specially built for the Goddard Tunnel project in the Swiss Alps. With 14,000-foot peaks, the Alps are some of the tallest mountains in Europe. And just south of Zurich, engineers are boring a double railroad tunnel 35 miles long, straight through the mountains. When completed, it will be the longest tunnel in the world. The new route will save the Swiss millions, replacing an old, inefficient system.
The existing line goes over the Alps. Trains cannot be very heavy because they have to go up 2,000 feet and they have to go down 2,000 feet. On this line, the train will be much longer, much heavier, and they will go through the Alps, not over.
Like boring Arctic rock, cutting through this mountain is no easy task. It takes 4 TBMs to get the job done. Adrian Villiers has worked in the tunnel for 8 years. He manages one of the 4 crews carving away inside the mountain.
Just here, behind this wall, is the turning wheel. It consists of about 70 discs being pressed against the rock, and the rock's being crushed. And because this wheel has openings like a water wheel, and while turning, the material gets up into the machine and over the conveyor belt all the way out to the construction site.
Behind the cutting wheel, a ganged network of 10 500-horsepower electric motors. Trailing behind the TBM, reaching all the way back to the tunnel entrance, is a network of power, water, and ventilation lines that grows steadily longer as the TBM moves forward. The machine is steered by varying the amount of pressure exerted on these jacks.
First, we have to set it in place by pushing those big grippers to the sides, so the machine is fixed. Then we can add differential pressure on those 2 steel rods. By adding differential power, we go to the left or right, up and down.
These hydraulic jacks push off of the tunnel lining to keep the cutting wheel pressed against the rock face ahead. With each cycle, the TBM pushes slowly forward until the jacks are fully extended. Then the cutting wheel stops. The jacks contract, and builders construct another layer of tunnel lining, which the jacks use to brace themselves for the next push forward. Workers call the machine the inchworm because of the way that it moves through the ground. Boring a deep tunnel would offer big advantages in the Arctic because it would keep workers underground and out of the cold. And, luckily, the rock beneath the Bering Strait is extremely hard, which actually makes TBM tunneling easier.
You might think hard rock is more difficult than soft rock. It's the contrary. Hard rock usually supports itself, and in soft rock condition, in unstable condition, we have to add lots of support, and that takes lots of time.
In Switzerland, the Gotthard Tunnel team is encountering a mixture of hard and soft rock, which makes tunneling extremely slow. Right now, the TBM has hit a particularly unstable soft spot. The risk is that the tunnel roof near the front of the TBM will give way, potentially burying the machine and its crew. To stabilize the ground, builders add metal netting like a cage. Once they get past this soft spot and get back into hard ground, the crew can pick up the pace once more. At the Bering Strait, engineers believe tunnel boring machines would be the best choice to carve the 30-foot diameter passageways required for trains. But at twice the length of the Gotthard Tunnel, it would be far riskier than anything ever attempted before. But no matter what it would take, the benefits of a permanent link between the continents could make it all worthwhile.
About 10% full separator waterproof, so we can block in one side of it.
Massive tunnel boring machines could carve through more than 60 miles of Arctic granite to dig a tunnel beneath the Bering Strait. But that's not the hardest part.
Since its location is very, very remote, the logistics of getting men, materials, and design crews to that location are much more massive than anything that we've done in the United States today.
Engineers face a huge challenge just to get crews and supplies to the Arctic. There are no roads. The sea is frozen most of the year, and aircraft can't carry all the machinery. So the best way to get equipment and crews to a Bering worksite would be by train. On the Alaskan side, the nearest railhead is 750 miles away in Fairbanks. In Russia, it's further. Crews will have to build nearly 2,000 miles of track to connect the Bering Strait by rail. As if that wasn't enough, they'd have to build the railway on unstable ground.
Both sides, we're facing permafrost issues and Arctic conditions, which wreak havoc on anything that we might construct.
And that's not the worst of it. The Russians face a natural obstacle that could deny rail access to the Bering Strait forever. It's the Lena River, an 8-mile wide killer.
We're gonna open up a little more.
The Lena separates the Bering Sea from the rest of civilized Russia. Any food or supplies going north have to cross this frozen blockade.
The Lena River is one of the most significant water systems in Russia. The railroad builders of today are going to have to cross the river Lena to reach the city of Yakutsk. It's an enormous challenge.
Yakutsk is the region's largest town, a former dumping ground for political prisoners. Today, it's the gateway to all points north. To build a railroad up to the Bering Strait, crews would first have to span the river with a railroad bridge. As it is now, there are only 2 ways to cross the Lena: by boat or by air. These small planes and choppers are often grounded by bad weather, and they're unable to carry heavy loads. Without a railroad, cargo going to the Bering Strait would have to be ferried over the Lena, a treacherous journey. Conditions here are so difficult, it takes 2 boats for each ferry crossing. First, an icebreaker carves a path. Then the ferry follows in its wake, carrying semi-trucks, cargo vans, and passengers. Brutal weather conditions mean the ferry can only make one round trip per day. In winter, the ice gets so thick, the ferry can't run at all for 4 months. Each crossing is a dangerous endeavor. This ferry would have to bring all supplies for the Bering Strait, unless the Russians can build a railroad bridge to replace it. But that will mean working in sub-zero temperatures and often with as little as 4 hours of daylight. As daunting as that sounds, more than 100 miles away, Russian crews are already building a link to the nearest railroad. These workers have built 55 miles of rail, and they've got 65 miles to go before they reach the river. Here's how they do it. A specialized crew works by hand to build the track in sections.
Eric, let me know when you open that MOV. I'm over here by the swing too.
Then this machine spits them out like a Polar Pez dispenser. It can haul 100 tons of rail in temperatures 50 degrees below zero. Out here, it's so cold, crews can only work 4-hour shifts. More than 500 men have spent the last 4 years on the job, and they're going to be here another 5 before they're done. But the biggest obstacle they face isn't the cold, it's the permafrost.
Permafrost, by definition, is ground that's been frozen for 2 or more consecutive years. Over time, a vegetative mat establishes itself on the ground that's thick enough to insulate that and keep it frozen.
That frozen mat feels rock hard, but if the temperature were to rise above freezing, ice between the soil's particles would melt and the ground beneath the rail would sink. A disaster for trains. Just by clearing a path for the tracks, crews can inadvertently thaw the ground.
You're going to be building across virgin territory that is now treed or vegetated. You clear that pathway, you remove those trees, now you have solar radiation penetrating the ground directly, and it starts to thaw that ground.
Making this a construction nightmare. Permafrost covers more than half of Russia. If crews can't stabilize the rail here, the dream of building the Bering Tunnel will never get off the ground. The solution is to keep cool, and engineers use a buried thermosiphon, or heat pipe, to do it.
The pipe is filled with a gas under moderate pressure. The heat from the permafrost is absorbed into the gas at the bottom of the pipe. The gas rises, the heat is evaporated out of the cooling fin, and the gas turns to a liquid, drops to the bottom of the pipe, and absorbs more heat, and turns into a gas again, and you get this cycling effect due to gravity.
Bleeding off heat before it can thaw the permafrost helps the Russians stabilize this tricky ground. After they complete the rail line across the Lena, they plan to keep building north, all the way to the Bering Strait. If that happens, engineers will be one giant step closer to making the Bering Strait Tunnel a reality.
If you can head that direction, we're about to start it.
But engineers first need to finalize their tunnel design to provide protection from disasters. If they expect anyone to risk their cargo or their lives for the 60-mile ride below the Bering Sea. A tunnel under the Bering Strait would re-establish an ancient continental link, severed during the last ice age. Then passengers would be able to travel over land from London to Moscow, to Washington, D.C. But those continents have different sized railroad tracks. North America uses the world standard gauge, 4 feet, 8.5 inches wide. But Russia's rails are almost half a foot wider. Fortunately, engineers have already solved the problem.
There's a retrofit system that you could put on a broader train system. Essentially, it's a second set of wheels, if you will, 6 inches narrower than the Russian set, and you can adapt them to those rail cars so you could accommodate either side.
As crews construct the tunnel, they could live in what are now 2 Arctic villages on each shore. Wales on the Alaskan side, and Yulin in Russia. These rural outposts would become sprawling boom towns.
The staging and the economics, the logistics of undertaking something like this are probably unique on the globe of today.
But builders won't have to tunnel across that 60-mile gap in one go, because a lucky accident of geography may have cut them a break.
In the middle of the strait, we have the Diomede Islands. Little Diomede Island is American. Big Diomede Island is Russian.
If you aligned your tunnel to incorporate those islands, then you could actually break the tunnel into 3 lengths.
Each segment would be less than the length of Europe's channel. But where to start digging?
It makes sense to tunnel from both ends, but overall, you would save time by tunneling from multi-directions.
Ideally, crews could dig on 4 sides, from both continents towards the islands, and from the islands back towards the mainlands. So the first step would be to bore between the 2 islands and connect the 1.5-mile gap. That would provide a large enough staging area for crews to simultaneously tunnel from 4 vantage points. But it's not a matter of digging a single tube from shore to shore. Crews would actually need to build 3 tunnels. 2 for train traffic in each direction, and a 3rd, smaller service tunnel between them. After the whole project is complete, this tube will carry fiber optics, electric cables, and energy pipelines.